You are listening to the FTWpodcast.com, where we talk about wrestling in all of its laughable glory. Here's a clip from this week's episode.
Paul Heyman was interviewed this week, and basically laid out the game plan he pitched to TNA.
Which you can see on the FTWpodcast.com.
Exactly. Yes, Joe posted that. You can see you can listen to the entire interview concerning this. Key point is basically this: release everybody over 40 except for one legend and push the youth. He wants to ditch the legends because with that many on the card, it stifles progress. He thinks guys with Sting, Bubba Ray, RVD, Hogan, you're not going to be saying, "Wow, think about how awesome this guy will be 5 years from now." He did point out that FTW podcast favorites Beer Money and Motor City Machine Guns were awesome. So, what do you guys think? How do you think that would play out? How do you think his idea would play out?
We've said, I don't know, time and time again that this is exactly what we would want. Hogan, Bischoff gone. You guys want Sting gone, fine. The only guy I definitively wouldn't get rid of is RVD. I mean, he still obviously has it. He still obviously can do it. He still has a ton of the crowd behind him. So I think he's exactly right. Why they don't listen to this and why they do the things they do is the reason we bitch about TNA all the time. So we have always been in Heyman's corner. I think until proven otherwise, we will always be in Heyman's corner. But he's exactly right. I agree with everything he says. So
yeah,
we've also said it, like you pointed out.
Yeah.
If I broke Heyman's rule at all, I would try to keep Sting and RVD because Sting doesn't wrestle that much, so he doesn't really get in anybody's way. And he's good to have for like segments and promos, and you can use him and when he's not wrestling, you can use him backstage to help develop the up and coming youth. But I think Heyman's right on the money here, and this is what TNA was doing before Hogan and Bischoff came in and started getting all of these big old. TNA made their name with guys that nobody had ever heard of before. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Motor City Machine Guns. These were the guys that TNA used and built their core around.
Okay. All right. Do you think that TNA would listen to any of this before we move on real quick? Do you think that no, you don't think they listened to it when he started and they're not going to do it now?
Hogan and Bischoff won't listen to anybody's advice other than their own.
Yep.
They don't have it in their DNA.
But they have the DNA of TNA.
They had their chance to listen. They've had their chance to listen a million times, and they haven't. I don't see why this would be any different.
See, I'm looking at this. I don't think it's Hogan and Bischoff. I honestly think it's Dixie Carter.
And that's fine, too, if it is. Whoever it is isn't listening. So you very well could be right, Harrison. I'm sorry.
Women never listen.
No, I honestly think it's Dixie Carter and Vince Russo. Because these are talent that Dixie Carter really... oh, my God. I mean...
those are the people who help
he
bring
basically
an
brought up
immediate
that...
spotlight to them. That's the problem. But
exactly. I mean, you saw... Exactly. I mean, Dixie Carter was all about these legends when she brought him first in. I mean, she was all about being in the press with Hogan, hold up his hand, getting her picture taken with him in front of the TNA logo, all that stuff. I think it's Vince Russo and them because Vince is just as much of an ego as Heyman, only terrible ideas. I mean, not terrible ideas, they're just dated. They're just like from the early 90s, So I think it's the combination of two of them. I don't think it's Hogan and Bischoff. I think they're the symptom, they're not the cause. And I kind of like Bischoff because I think when it comes to... okay, look, I think Bischoff is great in certain circumstances. I don't think he's contributing as much as he should to the situation. I think it's really... that's just me. I think it's Russo and Carter.
Yeah, if you use Bischoff the proper way, he can be awesome. He plays the heel brilliantly in certain circumstances, but
like when he does karate.
Nah.
But yeah. You could be right. It could be Vince Russo because, like you said, he's got an ego just as big as Heyman or Bischoff and anything else. The problem is that Vince Russo hasn't been able to come up with anything new, so he just recycles stuff that worked for him in the past, and it's old and tired and nobody likes it anymore. But whoever it is, look, as a fan of TNA before Hogan and Bischoff came, whether Vince Russo and Dixie Carter weren't following Heyman's advice, the youth got a lot more screen time and they got a lot more push than they are getting right now. So the problem may have been there, but Hogan and Bischoff made it worse. And somebody, whether it's Hogan, whether it's Bischoff, whether it's Carter, whether it's Russo, somebody needs to start listening to what people like us, people like Paul Heyman, people like other people who know from in the wrestling business have been saying, and start taking some of that advice and start getting rid of some of the older talent on their roster and start going back to the youth of TNA and saying, okay, we're going to live or die as a company based on what you young guys can do. Good luck.
Heyman pointed out that the one thing that TNA needs is to look completely different from WWE. That was the one thing he hammered home. Where have you heard that topic before? Hint, it's on the show you're listening to. I mean, it's on Twitter. It's everywhere. The fans want variety. They want TNA to find its own voice. And Heyman's right. I'm sorry. I'm not as big a fan of the guy as everybody else on the show, but he's right. He is so totally right.
Well, you've heard our thoughts, but now we want to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and even join us live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. at theftwpodcast.com.